Well, hello everyone. It's John Laughland here. I'm the Director of Forum for Democracy International. I'm delighted to be joined from Moscow by William Immink, who is coming to the Renaissance Institute in Herengracht in Amsterdam this Friday, the 9th of May, to present his book, Russian Propaganda, which is, as I understand, being published by Amsterdam Books. William, it's a great pleasure to meet you, if only virtually. Perhaps you could tell us in a few words what led you to write this book, and perhaps give us an idea of what it says.
Yeah, so I've been living in Russia for almost 7 years now, and I've got to know this place in a really interesting way. I've written, well, this is my third book, and the last book that I wrote, I did a road trip through Russia, and it came out in April 22. It was called The Worst Timed Book Ever, because Russia was not popular anymore after February 22, and I was really hesitant to write another book because of the reactions on that book, but actually I was writing the whole time, so I had stuff like that I wrote about. And so 1 month I didn't have a lot of work. In December, the winters are long here in Russia, and so I decided to just put everything on paper, put everything in a book, and that's how it came to be. Like my life during the special military operation in Russia, which is very. I mean, there's a lot of people left, but when this whole thing started, my daughter, she didn't have a Dutch passport yet, so I wasn't able to leave as a foreigner. I could leave, of course, but I didn't want to leave my family here because I have two children and my wife. So that's how the book came to be. My life in Russia during this very interesting time.
And is the book then mainly about your life in Russia, or is it about the title Russian Propaganda?
Well, that is the silver lining throughout the book. It's about there's this whole tension between what people in Holland say, and they're asking, why are you still living in that place? And then there's the kind of, they think that I fell into like this Kremlin propaganda thing. But I've learned to see like the different side of the story, and there's always the question, what is truth? And that's like the silver lining throughout the whole book. So it's my life, but kind of searching for what is the truth. That's a little bit, yeah.
And can you give us a brief summary in a few words of the general argument?
Well, one of the things, one chapter, I talk about the question, are there Nazis in Ukraine? The first thing Putin said when this whole thing started, he said, we're going to denazify Ukraine. And like straight away, most Dutch people would say, well, that's just, Kremlin propaganda. That's exactly what they would call it, And first of all, a lot of Russians thought it was just propaganda.
Yes.
But then when you dig into this whole question, I mean, there's something they mean. Maybe we wouldn't straight away call them Nazis, but they are radical nationalists, people who are ready to kill for a nationalist idea. I mean, it's okay to be nationalist, like when there's a World Cup or something, we love orange, but we're not killing those who are not, or making a law that, for example, in Belgium, you cannot have people make a law that you cannot learn Dutch in school, because Dutch is one of the languages that half of the population speak. And so this whole thing, it's very, I'm not taking a side, I'm just saying that there's, different sides to this whole story, and it's just too quick to just say that's Kremlin propaganda. And I go through some facts that in 2017, I think, if I'm correct, the Congress in the United States, they stopped military aid to one certain battalion because of their Nazi affiliation. And so that's just a
exactly
fact
right.
that we cannot just say, no, that's Kremlin propaganda. It's a fact.
Yeah.
And and of course, not all Ukrainians are Nazis, and I wouldn't say that, but there are just some elements in the society that are radicalized. And yeah, that's this whole journey that I go through this book. Like, what is the truth? Can we just say that's Kremlin propaganda, or is there something, and how can we solve this whole thing? And it's easier to solve things when you look the problem into the eye. And I mean, if you're sitting around the table as diplomats, I'm not a diplomat, of course, but someone says this and someone says this, it doesn't help by saying, what you're saying, that's just propaganda. Somehow, even if you don't agree, you got to find some middle ground. And if you just say, the Kremlin is just, Hitler, and you're not supposed to discuss anything with them, well, then this thing is going to drag on, and that's what's happening. So my book is also kind of, I'm trying to maybe help people understand the Russian side, even though maybe that is even, I can get canceled through that, because how can you understand the aggressor? It's a whole journey in this book. I think it's very interesting. Yeah.
Well, I have a lot of sympathy with what you say, because I've never lived in Russia, but I worked for 10 years in Paris for a think tank that was funded by Russian companies. And so I was professionally involved in this. This was long before the Ukraine war. My job finished in 2017, but I had 10 years of feeling myself to be at the intersection between truth and propaganda, in this case, Western propaganda against Russia. So I have a lot of sympathy with. Did you take a while to come round to this view? Were you perhaps on the other side when you first arrived in Russia, or did you? How did your own? Is there also a story about William Immink in your book?
Well, for me, like, I'm a Christian, and I'm a conservative in that sense. So there are some things in Russian society that I embraced, straight from the start. There's a law that says that you're not allowed to propagate LGBT values. And I think it's good to have a law like that, because why should children? The law is especially for children. So why would you tell this to children? Let the children grow up, and then, I mean, what they do when they're adults, that's their business. But I think they should grow up in a way without a lot of politics, and without a lot of, even this sexual, how do you call it? I like that in Russia, that there's some conservative. Even in 2020, the government, they adopted a new constitution, and in the constitution it says that the marriage is between a man and a woman. And as a Christian, those are things I embrace fully, and I think the West has gone crazy in that sense. So I've never had like this way of, a lot of journalists, they come here and they're like activists, they're like, I'm going to show how bad Russia is. But I always try to be honest and to say, okay, there are some bad things, and no country is perfect. But when we compare it to other countries like Iran and China, I think Russia is the better of those. But I've not been in those countries, so I don't really know how it feels to live there. but maybe that's propaganda as well. I don't know. But I think Russia isn't a bad place to live, and yeah, there are some really good things in this society that I like. So.
Very good. Well, listen, William, I wish you all the best for your book launch on Friday, and I'd be delighted and honoured if you would agree to be our guest for an hour, not for 10 minutes, on our weekly video broadcast, the Forum, which we hold every Wednesday. And then perhaps if we can make it, I don't know what your schedule's like, but maybe we can persuade you to come on that in a couple of weeks' time, and you can tell us a bit more at greater length about the book. But
yeah.
Thank you very much for giving us your time this evening, and all the best for this week. Goodbye now.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Yes, thanks.